The cross delivers what I don't deserve. Now, as we just think for a moment about the truth that story teaches us, I just want you to consider, would you take the same steps that the thief took that day as he hung on the cross watching Jesus? Would you consider taking those same steps? Now, what I mean, you may think that it's perfectly reasonable that when this life is over, you can just kind of walk right on into heaven based on your resume. That may be what you think. But I just want to challenge you on that thought process. So remember what the thief does. As he watches Jesus on the cross, he thinks about his own resume, and when he does, he concludes that he deserves the cross. Then as he hangs there and he's watching Jesus, he considers Jesus' resume, and as he does, he considers Jesus' sinlessness and his grace, and he concludes that if there's any hope for heaven, it's going to be on the strength of Jesus' resume, not on the strength of his own. And that's the level of intellectual honesty I want to challenge every single one of us to do. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you some homework for this week. This week, I want you to do the exact same thing the thief does. I want you to compare your resume to God's resume. And I want you to do that in all seriousness. I mean, literally, I want you to do it. I want you to sit down this week with a piece of paper, just kind of draw a line right down the middle of the sheet of paper. And on one side, on the left side, I want you to write out your resume. And I want you to go for broke. I want you to list every good thing that you can think of, every qualification that you have. I mean, go for it. When you write a resume, you go for it, don't you? I mean, we all look good on a resume, right? So go for it. Give it your best shot, all right? Then, on the other side of the line, I want you to write down God's resume. Now, you might be thinking, friend, I wouldn't even know where to start if I were to try to write out God's resume. I've got no idea. Where would I even begin? Well, let me just give you some cliff notes, okay? In the Bible, there's a psalm, Psalm 145, and also Psalm 146. And I would submit those two psalms give us a really good starting point for Jesus' resume, okay? Really good starting point. Let me just read you part of Psalm 145. Here's just a portion, beginning in verse 13. It says, "Your kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. Your rule is for all generations. The Lord is faithful in all his words and gracious in all his actions. The Lord helps all who fall. He raises up all who are oppressed. All eyes look to you, and you give them their food at the proper time. You open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in all his ways and faithful in all his acts. The Lord is near all who call out to him, all who call to him with integrity. He fulfills the desire of those who fear him. He hears their cry for help and saves them. The Lord guards all those who love him, but he destroys all the wicked. My mouth will declare the Lord's praise. Let every living thing bless his holy name forever and ever." I would submit to you, that's a pretty good resume. And that's just a taste. So on our app, on our church app, just click on the link for today's sermon, and right next to the little Bible study that goes along with it, you'll find Psalm 145 and 146, or you can just look them up for yourselves. But just go through that exercise this way. My resume, God's resume, and just write them all down. And then after you've got your resume and God's resume written out side by side, just ask yourself and be honest with yourself. When I compare my resume to God's, what right do I have to expect to get into heaven on my own merit? I mean, is there any reason that you can expect to get into heaven without an invitation of someone on the inside, someone like Jesus Christ? And then maybe you'll be ready to do just exactly what the thief himself did. You'll be ready to say, "Jesus, will you remember me today? Man, I love those words. Will you invite me into the throne room of heaven? Because as I look at my resume, Lord, I know I don't deserve it. But when I look at your resume, I know that you do. So my only hope for eternity is if I get to come in based on your resume, not on my own. If I come in under your invitation, not because I've somehow earned it. Do you see how that's good news? Do you see how life-giving that is? Do you see how asking Jesus to extend an invitation to you is the beauty of the cross itself? Because it just reminds me that the cross delivers what I don't deserve. And that's a beautiful thing. And that invitation is available to you, and it's available to me today.